When you find yourself in a place where everything seems to have collapsed, your plans failed, your trust betrayed, your emotions shattered, it feels like the world has broken you into pieces that can never be gathered again. The weight of this world's trials, disappointments, and betrayals becomes too heavy, and it feels as though no one sees what you're going through. But in that exact moment, in that exact feeling of being broken, there is something divine taking place. What you call falling apart is actually the beginning of being shaped into something better. You may not understand it now, but that moment of collapse is where the light of guidance begins to enter. When the world breaks you, it's often because you've been too reliant on it, too focused on what it offers. Its people, its status, its promises. And Allah in His mercy allows that breaking to happen, not to destroy you, but to bring you back to Him, to remind you that there is no true source of strength, peace, or restoration except through Him. There's a powerful wisdom in being broken. It humbles the heart in a way comfort never could. It peels off the layers of arrogance, self-dependence, and attachment to the temporary. Sometimes when you're whole, you walk with a heart that feels in control, independent, and proud. But when you're broken, you walk with a heart that knows its need for its creator. You cry not because of weakness, but because your soul is yearning for healing. In those tears, in that silence, you're not being ignored. You're being gently redirected. You're being purified. You're being taught lessons that only pain can teach. And the more it hurts, the more you're being emptied of everything false. All the illusions, all the temporary attachments, all the distractions. You begin to let them go one by one, even without realizing it, until you're standing there with nothing but your bare, honest heart. That's the place where transformation begins. Being broken allows you to hear what your busy life had silenced. You hear your inner voice again. You hear the whispers of dua again. You feel the ache of needing Allah again. The pain becomes a bridge between your worldly distractions and your spiritual awakening. You fall into sujood not as a habit, but as a desperate plea. You raise your hands not because you are taught to, but because your soul longs for relief. That is where true rebuilding starts. Not with noise, not with crowds, but in the stillness of being alone with your Lord. He sees every part of you that the world has crushed. And He doesn't judge you the way people do. He doesn't turn away from you because you're weak. In fact, it is your weakness that draws His mercy nearer. The more broken you are in front of Him, the more beloved you become. The more you cry to Him, the more peaceful your heart becomes. When you're broken, you no longer ask for what's flashy. You begin to ask for what matters. Sincerity, peace, faith, patience, contentment. You realize that real wealth is not in status or possessions, but in a soul that is satisfied with Allah's decree. You begin to trust again, but this time not in the world or people, but in the one who controls it all. You stop chasing perfection in others because you realize that only your Creator is perfect. And through that brokenness, a new version of you is born. Not the one who relied on everything else, but the one who relies only on Allah. Not the one who defines success by how many people praise them, but by how close they felt to their Lord. Your identity shifts from someone who was shaped by the expectations of the world to someone who is being reshaped by the mercy and wisdom of the one who knows you better than you know yourself. And slowly the brokenness becomes a blessing. The wounds become wisdom. The emptiness becomes openness. The silence becomes sacred. The hardship becomes the means through which your soul is softened and your heart is filled with a strength that no worldly thing could ever give. Pain has a way of bringing clarity to what truly matters. When everything is going well, when the world is giving you its attention, when your plans are working out and your heart feels full with people, accomplishments, and dreams, it's easy to forget the one who gave you all of it in the first place. The human heart becomes distracted. It grows attached to the gifts and forgets the giver. But the moment the world turns its back on you, when people you trusted distance themselves, when the things you were building suddenly fall apart, that is when the soul begins to turn inward again. That is when the heart begins to whisper what it was too busy to feel before. The pain that shakes you to your core becomes the reason you finally lift your hands in sincere dua. The nights that leave you sleepless become the nights you return to your prayer mat with a brokenness that wasn't there before. In those moments, your soul knows that no one can truly help, no one can truly understand, and no one can truly heal except the one who created that soul. When pain enters your life, It removes the veils you didn't know were covering your eyes. You start to see with more sincerity. The things you thought were so important begin to lose their value. The need for approval from others begins to fade. The weight of what people say about you becomes lighter. The only voice you begin to seek is the voice of guidance through the Quran, through remembrance, through stillness in the presence of your Lord. You realize that the pain is not just a punishment or a trial. It's a form of purification. It's a cleansing of your heart. It's a reset of your direction. You were walking down a road that may have taken you further away from Allah, and now, through that pain, you're being pulled back. It might feel like you're breaking, but in reality, you're being realigned. One of the most profound gifts that pain brings is the revival of sincerity. When you're in hardship, there is no room for show. You don't cry to impress anyone. You don't pray for likes. You don't make dua with fancy words. You cry because you're in need. You pray because you believe only your Lord can ease the weight. You make dua because your heart knows there is no other door to knock on. That sincerity is priceless. It's the very thing that Allah loves most from His servants. A heart that turns back to Him completely, humbly and honestly. The pain of this world reminds you that your true home is not here. That no matter how much you chase perfection here, it will never be found. That every heartbreak, every disappointment, every betrayal is a sign that this world is temporary and imperfect. It pushes you to seek something eternal, and so you start yearning, not just for relief in this world, but for closeness to your Lord in the next. In pain, you begin to question things more deeply, you reflect on your purpose, you slow down, you sit in silence and finally listen to your inner voice. You begin to recognize how far you've drifted, and slowly, step by step, you begin the journey back. That journey may be full of tears, full of setbacks, full of long nights, but it is the most important journey you'll ever make. Because on this path, you begin to rebuild not your worldly image, but your connection with the one who matters most. The friends that left, the plans that failed, the doors that closed, they were never the source of your worth. Your worth was never tied to their approval. It was always with your Creator. And now, because of this pain, you see it clearly. You begin to replace worldly dependency with divine trust. You begin to speak less to people and more to Allah. You start to find comfort not in distractions, but in remembrance. Your heart learns that even if the world breaks every part of you, you can still be whole if your connection with Allah is strong. When something is taken from you in this world, the pain feels personal. The loss seems unfair. The heart questions, why me? Especially when you've worked so hard, loved so deeply, or hoped so sincerely. Whether it's a person who meant everything to you, an opportunity you waited years for, or a dream you built with all your strength, when it's taken away, it can feel like a part of your soul was pulled out. But what we often fail to understand in that moment is that this world was never meant to be a place of permanence. It's a place of tests, transitions, and temporary experiences. The people, the successes, the happiness, they all come and go by the permission of Allah. Nothing in this dunya is fixed, except the reality that it will all one day fade. And so when something is removed from your life, especially something your heart was attached to, it may be the very act of mercy your soul needed most. Allah doesn't remove something to punish you, He removes it to protect you, to guide you, and to elevate you. Sometimes you're holding on to a person who is silently pulling you away from your faith. Sometimes the opportunity you lost would have distracted you from your purpose. Sometimes what you thought you needed was actually a veil between you and your Creator, but your heart couldn't see it, so Allah removed it for you. That removal may feel like devastation, but in truth it is divine redirection. It is Allah's way of clearing space in your heart for something better, something purer, something that will bring you closer to Him. It is not always about getting more in this life. Sometimes the better that Allah gives you is the ability to sleep with a clean heart, to walk with inner peace, to cry in sujood with sincerity, and to rise in the morning feeling His presence in your life in a way you never did before. And often, after the storm settles, when time has passed and your tears have dried, you begin to see the wisdom behind what was taken. You begin to thank Allah for not giving you what you once begged Him for. You start to realize that what He replaced it with whether it was a deeper understanding, a stronger heart, or a greater connection to your faith, was worth more than what you lost. The people who left may have broken you, but they also made room for you to turn to the one who heals. The closed door may have crushed your spirit, but it made you seek a path where your soul found light again. You didn't just survive the loss, you grew through it. You didn't just lose something, you gained what can never be taken. A heart that trusts in Allah's plan, even when it doesn't understand it. When the world strips you of what you thought you couldn't live without, Allah replaces it with something that nourishes your spirit in ways you didn't know you needed. That is the beauty of divine compensation. It doesn't always look like worldly gain. Sometimes it looks like a peaceful heart after a long night of tears. Sometimes it looks like new prayers rising from a soul that was once heedless. Sometimes it's the freedom of walking away from what once enslaved your emotions. And while the world may not see the value in that, your Lord does. He sees the growth, He sees the patience, He sees the quiet battles, and He rewards accordingly. Not always by giving back the same thing, but by giving you something better. Better for your faith, better for your akhirah, and better for the strength of your heart. Because what this world takes away, your Lord has the power to return in ways beyond your imagination. He never takes without giving. He never allows a loss without offering a lesson, a healing, and a new path. There comes a time in every person's life when they feel like they have hit rock bottom. It could be due to the weight of continuous failures, broken relationships, betrayal, financial collapse, or a deep spiritual void that no one around them understands. That low point feels like being buried beneath your own sorrow and silence. You feel invisible. The world keeps moving while you are stuck in a place where no words are enough and no help seems close. But what many people don't realize is that this lowest point is not where your story ends. It's where Allah begins building you in ways you never imagined. Rock bottom in the eyes of people is often the construction site in the eyes of the one who created you. When there is nothing left around you to lean on, you finally realize that you were meant to lean on Him all along. That's where rebuilding begins. You may feel like your world is in ruins, but to the one who formed you from nothing, rebuilding you is effortless. In that quiet place of heartbreak and silence, you become more aware of your need for Him. The distractions fade, the noise disappears, and all that is left is your heart facing its reality. No longer are you concerned about impressing people. No longer are you pretending to be okay when you're not. You become real with yourself. You become honest in your conversations with your Lord. You start whispering to Him words you never thought you'd say. Not memorized yasfas, but the raw confessions of your soul. The pain, the confusion, the need, the regret, the longing. And in those broken whispers lies your healing. In that raw vulnerability lies the beginning of a transformation. Rock bottom strips you of everything superficial. It removes the false layers you wore to protect yourself. The pride, the ego, the self-sufficiency. It brings you to your knees, not in defeat, but in surrender. Because when you surrender to Allah, you don't lose, you rise. It's in sujud, with your face on the ground, where the highest parts of your soul begin to awaken. You begin to see yourself not through the lens of your failures, but through the lens of divine mercy. The same you who thought it was over starts to feel something small but powerful returning. A glimmer of hope, a spark of faith, a breath of peace. The very things you thought were lost forever begin to grow from that place of devastation. Allah does not rebuild you with bricks of the same kind. He uses stronger materials, patience, faith, humility, resilience, and wisdom. He builds a version of you that is no longer easily shaken by people's opinions or life's unpredictability. You start to walk again, not with arrogance, but with gratitude. You begin to trust again, not in people, but in the one who never left your side. You smile again, not because life is perfect, but because you've tasted the sweetness of being held by your Lord when the world dropped you. What was once a space of isolation becomes your place of rebirth. That pain, that silence, that solitude, it became sacred. It became the soil in which your new self was planted. And slowly you begin to rise, not in a rush, not for show, but steadily. You start praying differently. You talk to Allah in your own words and you feel heard. You walk through life with more compassion because now you understand what it means to suffer. You become softer but stronger. You don't fear being broken anymore because you've seen that from your lowest point came your highest connection with your Creator. You begin to carry yourself with the quiet strength of someone who has been rebuilt by the most merciful himself. And though the world may still see you as the same person, you know something changed within. You were rebuilt with grace, and no one can ever take that away from you. There are moments in life when the weight of everything you carry becomes too heavy to bear alone. You try to explain it to others, but they don't understand. You try to be strong in front of people, but behind closed doors, the silence screams louder than any words ever could. The world moves on, yet inside you time seems frozen by grief, confusion, or fear. And in that moment, when you feel most alone, when you feel as if no one sees your pain or knows what you're going through, that's when Allah's mercy is closest. You may not feel it instantly. You may not see a miracle happen before your eyes. But deep inside, where only you and your Creator reside, something begins to shift. The loneliness you're experiencing becomes a door to a more intimate relationship with your Lord. You begin to realize that there is a type of nearness to Allah that only comes when the world turns away. The people who leave, the ones who break your trust, the situations that throw you into despair, they all become reminders that no matter how much you try to hold on to this world, it will always let you down. And it's in that realization that your heart softens. You stop seeking perfection from the imperfect. You stop relying on those who can't even control their own tomorrow. Instead, you begin to pour your heart out to the one who has always been there, even when you forgot him. The more the world breaks you, the more your soul begins to search for meaning, and it finds that meaning not in answers, but in connection, in remembrance, in surrender. Because there are things only Allah can heal, and there are places within you only He can reach. No human word can touch the depth of that pain the way His mercy can. No friend, no family, no companion can sit beside your heart like the one who created it. The more your heart aches, the more sincere your du'as become. You're no longer asking for things just to have them. You're asking for peace, for strength, for guidance, for forgiveness, for closeness to your Lord. And that shift is powerful. It transforms you. It deepens you. The very pain that once made you feel lost begins to draw you closer to the truth that you were never alone. That every tear, every breath, every silent plea was seen, was heard, and was recorded. Allah does not ignore the broken. He raises them. He doesn't overlook your hardship. He uses it to purify you, to elevate you, and to bring you back to Him. That's why the people who have endured the most trials often have the softest hearts, not because they are weak, but because they've learned that strength isn't loud. Strength is found in sujood. Strength is found in tears that fall during night prayers. Strength is found in hearts that continue to love, continue to trust, continue to believe, even when they've been hurt again and again. The more you are broken by this world, the less you cling to it. And that detachment doesn't make you bitter, it makes you free. You begin to find contentment not in what happens around you, but in who you are becoming within. You no longer wait for things to go your way to be grateful. You are grateful because you know your Lord is with you even when things fall apart. You no longer fear being alone because solitude becomes a sanctuary. You no longer fear loss because you've tasted what it means to survive with only Allah by your side. And that survival wasn't just survival, it was transformation. You walk into every new day not because life is perfect, but because your heart has become anchored in something eternal. You've been taught by pain, reshaped by hardship, and rebuilt through divine love. And in that rebuilding, your faith becomes unshakable, your heart becomes tranquil, and your soul becomes firmly rooted in the certainty that no matter how much the world breaks you, your Lord will always build you back stronger, wiser, and closer to Him.